we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, take time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our own, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, take time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our own, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo. Take time on it, though we may criticize it. This is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, bedtime on night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one grass, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, cause we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, bedtime on night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains. We ain't giving up no tree. We ain't giving up no river. That belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, take time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, take time on it. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one caress, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, bedtime on night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one chorus, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know, we gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere, make no mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain. We ain't giving up.
Honorable members, the Speaker.
Honorable members, I declare this 93rd sitting of the National Assembly of the 12th Parliament of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana to be duly constituted and in session. The clerk will lead us in prayers.
Almighty God, we here gathered together, do most humbly beseech thee to guide us in all our consultations, so that we may together build a land where knowledge is free, where the mind is without fear, and the head is held high, and where words come from the depth of truth. Grant us, O God, the need and guidance, so that we may deal justly with the several causes that come before us, laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and personal preferences, so that the result of our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion, the preservation of justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the President, and the peace and prosperity of Guyana. Grant us, O God, the vision so to lead, that all the people of this fair land may enter in that state of brotherhood and unity, where the mind is led forward by thee in the ever-widening thought and action.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Messages from the President. Announcements by the Speaker.
Honorable members, just a reminder, before our session starts, we will ring the first bell at 15 minutes before. So if we take a break at 12:30 and we said 1 hour, at 1:15 we will ring the first bell. 10 minutes after the second bell, and the third bell just preceding the entrance of the speaker. I've asked the staff to get a school bell, and that will be the tongue crier's bell. And after the first bell, I'll ask the sergeant at arms to go around the convention center and ring that bell, right? Because it takes us half an hour to get a quorum, in spite of the fact that people are in the vicinity. But that's just so that we can continue with the efficient use of our time. Thank you very much. Maybe Minister of Education, maybe we can borrow a school bell, because we've been looking for the last week. There are no school bells around.
You may be looking in the wrong place, but we'll see if we can lend you one, sir.
Thank you very much.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers and reports, etc. Reports from committees, oral questions without notice, questions and notice, statements by ministers including policy statements, personal explanations, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance, motions related to the sitting or business of the National Assembly and moved by a minister, introduction of bills, public business, government's business.
Honorable members, we will resume the debate on the motion for the approval of the estimates of expenditure for financial year 2025. Today, our first speaker is the Honorable former Vice President, the Honorable Kemraj Ramjita.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I rise here with a sense of duty for approximately 34 years, or might be even more, to do the honors of debating another budget, this time as opposition, but in any case, as a member of Parliament who would want to express certain sentiments about this budget presented under the theme, a secure, prosperous, and sustainable Guyana. I want to immediately state, Mr. Speaker, that while this theme aims to convey an optimistic vision, there is quite a bit of glaring deficiencies, certain missed opportunities, and misallocations, as I would put it, especially within the security sector, which I will be speaking on. I recall last time I spoke, you indicated to me that you got to stick to your shadow ministry. I indeed was galloping into certain directions to be a general critique, but but I rather suspect that this occasion, it will be for me to ensure that I do a critique of the national security in the context of wanting a broader vision in view of the monies that we have now. Certainly. Mr. Speaker, the President often speaks of one Guyana, but this budget presentation belies that rhetoric. The 108.7, I will call it 109 billion to round it off, allocated for security may appear to be robust on the surface, but on a closer examination, it reveals troubling misallocations, unaddressed systemic issues, and an over-reliance on what I call superficial solutions. Security is not merely about infrastructure or technology that will be utilized in those infrastructure, but it encompasses the safety and dignity of every citizen, our borders' integrity, the capacities of our personnel in those infrastructure, and our justice system's resilience. Mr. Speaker, I say that not to denounce the fact that we are going to build more police stations, but to say that the misallocation occurs as a result of not training enough people, because there must be human development with infrastructural development. This increase in the security sector from 94 billion last year to 109 billion this year reflects 14.5% increase. But this increase, based on the policies I noticed in the speech of the finance minister and the speech that will certainly follow mine, based on what we heard for the past 4 years, is far from being transformative. That is the speech of Mr. Ben, Honorable Minister. It remains skewed to institutional, what you call infrastructure, rather than institutional improvement and the broader framework required for national safety and security. I want to say, take for example, we're going straight now to reconstruct what is called the Brickdam Police Station at $1.7 billion. I think I have it correct, one accounts. And that accounts for a staggering 36% of the police infrastructure budget. This is I call a disproportionate allocation, which raises critical questions about whether the resources are being strategically utilized and more properly allocated to address our security needs both at the coastal and hinterland region. It is good to have one of the finest state-of-the-art institutions at Brigham, but it is also important that we must have that in the hinterland regions and other coastal areas, and so to complete what is called a balance between the human side and also the infrastructural side. I want to indicate too that we must not leave the hinterland area where we are going to have security issues, especially in Essequibo, concerning, and to leave it critically underserved. This is a one Guyana in accordance with the president, and one Guyana means not putting all the money in Georgetown necessarily and regionalizing or marginalizing the regions under the guise of development. The $6.2 billion Safe Country initiative aims to expand surveillance too, with an additional 320 sites across 6 regions. But I want to say that indeed, that being so, it fails to address what I call systemic vulnerabilities, such as the absence up to today, although we tried it from 2015 and started the process through a COOM set of recommendations, that is the person that came from England, is the absence of a robust data protection protocol. The other thing is a minimal cybersecurity framework. We have tried as best as possible to work that out, but it seems that some people can get charged and convicted and others can't be. And it is somewhat imbalanced in that regard. Limited interagency integration and oversight. Because as you know, and from my readings and even the expert advice that I had gotten from Mr. Coombe and Sitlington and all of them, technology without a supportive ecosystem, Mr. Speaker, is akin to constructing a house on quicksand. So we can make a 16-story or a 12-story brick dam police station, but if we don't have the personnel, we don't have the framework, the protocols that go with all of those, it is building a house on sand. And then there is what I call the human resource development. We can never leave out the human element, as I have emphasized, from or neglect it from the whole concept of the larger framework of infrastructure. This budget under security allocates $250 million to train, I think it is 1,700 security personnel in crime scene management, forensic analysis, and cybersecurity. And this provisioning is necessary, but it is also a provisioning that requires what the recommendations that have come from the Coombe report, specialized career pathways for certain personnel inside of that police force. So we can have units therein that can know very profoundly matters regarding cybersecurity, matters regarding crime scene management, and so on. So it is one thing to just say, well, we're going to train them at the elementary level of security and crime scene management, but we do not have a set of policemen who you can rely on in relation to certain pathways, especially in the context of the new crimes that the Caribbean report has indicated will happen in an oil economy, like the marine section out there, what can happen, and also because of the Venezuelan input and the intelligence that is required from the insecurities from those what I call ungovernable spaces in and around those hinterland regions. So although we have this 250 for training, we do not have any provisioning for performance metrics tied to outcomes. That was very important in the human resource report that Mr. Coombe did in connection with the British security sector reform. What we in Guyana suffer, and I tell you, indeed, I saw it for myself as public security minister, that we do not do these performance metrics so that you can know that this is a policeman that is doing well, or this is a unit that is doing well as against what we want of them. And then the long-term professional development framework. Well, that ties in to the specialized career pathways that I'm talking about. We need to spend lots more money on that set of pathways. And as a result of that, I think, as a result of not doing that, I think we have failed our skilled, motivated workforce that is required for a modern security framework, one that will take care of the modern security challenges. And in a similar line, I want to make the point of what happened to our prison service realities. It is fundamental that indeed we have to make budgetary allocations for prisons. But what I feel has to be prioritized in view of the at least much touted talk about reintegration and so on, that we prioritize at this time rehabilitation over what is called huge spendings. I think it is $6.2 billion on further prison service infrastructure. We want to foster reintegration into society. Reintegration, as was said by our Honorable Attorney General, Anil Nandalal, when he did that legislation some time ago, is important. It is not as if we must have a situation where we jail people just for sometimes minor offenses and so on. We have to start the process of ensuring that they do not commit the crimes again, what we call recidivism, and also the reintegration into society after they come out from prison. And that must be coordinated, I must say, in a strengthened way with social services. We have to look after people with a multi-network of the ministries involved. And that I see as somewhat misallocations occurring there. I want to also indicate that there must be an allocation for border and maritime security, which remains woefully inadequate. It is not adequate. And this was a big issue when we had that British security sector reform, in which there was, I think, a big report, I know of the report in relation to maritime security. Our limited coastal patrol capabilities can do damage to securing, as part of how we get a theme for this budget, securing the safety of people. There's too limited coastal patrol capabilities. Then also, we have an insufficient radar and aerial surveillance coverage. We are weak in interagency coordination, as very, very weak right now. This had started I had started a program of trying to integrate all of the interagencies involved in security and would have weekly meetings with them. I don't know if that is going on. But these deficiencies expose our nation risks ranging from illicit trafficking to territorial violations, undermining national sovereignty. And then the forensic capabilities, our forensic lab. I know that prior to 2015, we had a lab that was started, but somehow it seems that we still have to go overseas. And I rather suspect that the challenges that I faced are still faced by the Honorable Minister. But the technological upgrades and weak laboratory capacity, we must not allow in a country that is the largest, or what you call the fastest growing economy and all of that. This hampers effective crime solving, and it also hampers judicial outcomes. So that must be prioritized for the purposes of evidence-based policing. And something must be done, even if we have to ask regional governments for support. And I remember we do have a formidable experience and expertise out of Jamaica, from the Jamaican Constabulary. Now, I want to indicate that there are larger and broader issues that we must deal with in connection with the budgetary allocations. I feel that there are recommendations for reforms in the two reports that we had. One was the Sitlington report, and the other one was the Coombe report. And in those reports, we have additional recommendations that were done by other experts that these two experts had indicated ought to come on the scene and to do. And it would be wise, because a lot of times I hear our government officials indicating that, Mr. Ramjatani, I like the cost of, but what you propose? Well, we have to start developing a national security strategy in view of the very big dollars we got now to spend on what I regard as a national security strategy. Yeah. But it seems, Mr. Speaker, that the government officials only want to talk the talk. And when they get from us what we want, and which is provided for in the law to help, they don't do it. And I come here with the point that in that robust constitutional period of 1999-2002, we created for this Parliament a Parliamentary Security Committee. And you know, I cannot understand it. But the Honorable Minister, the first meeting in 2020, we then constituted the Parliamentary Security Committee, but not a single meeting thereafter. And how could we go now and ask, like when they did under my administration, the Commissioner of Police, please come. And the 16 hours of cross-examination of all manner of things. And because we want to ask the present Commissioner about his standing orders in relation to collecting $8.5 million for a wedding gift for a certain Brutus. We want to ask the Commissioner whether there isn't a certain rule that says after 55 you can't be appointed. But no, we will never get that opportunity. And so it is with profound disappointment, I must tell you, that we do not have the implementation of what is called that which we have now as dealing with these issues. We have to establish comprehensive oversight mechanisms, and that is one of them. comprehensive oversight mechanisms, and this must not only happen in relation to the police force, but the fire service. So much fires we have had, and notwithstanding so much monies that we have bought with new equipment and all of that, the fires rage on. And same thing with the prisons. Again, we have to expand and deepen the training programs and allocate lots more money. I think about 10% of this budget that is spent on security, we should advance and specialize training pathways, as I mentioned. And so, Mr. Speaker, we do have a set of recommendations. Implement anti-corruption safeguards by establishing the oversight committees that I talk about, and even within the police force itself. What you call the Police Complaints Authority, and even within the police itself. And let these things, the coroner's inquest, lots of things have been happening and we're not having that also. And the reports on that, it is fundamental that all these oversight mechanisms be put in place as early as possible, because, Mr. Speaker, we have the monies to do. But you know, Mr. Speaker, the history of the PPP's directed investments of monies is not one that inspires confidence. Their judgments have been frequently bad, and I know of it, even when they are not actually deliberately distorted to benefit someone or some group. Such government failures include, as we know, and we got to get back to it, because I noticed that is one of the things that your members over the other side of this floor have been talking about. Such failures include the Skeldon factory, NIS investments. A lot of the NIS monies went badly spent. CLICO funds, Amila Fall. They got so many things. But for the present day, this 10-hour a week or whatever it is called, employment scheme for $40,000 is another slush fund. It's a big slush fund. In my opinion, and I have said this 4 times right here in this parliament, the subsidization of sugar to the extent of about $40 billion to date, over and above that which we normally expend on it, is a big slush fund.
Honorable Member, I have been listening carefully to where you are going when you said deliberately distorted, imputing. So I'm going to strike those words from your presentation. You may continue.
I really think that I had the experience to avoid all of that, but you're very strict this morning. So there are a couple of other things that I would have liked to state on that, but I'm going to just bypass them. I want to state that we must not chase this growth mirage that the Honorable Finance Minister spoke about. We must substitute it with delivering for the well-being of Guyanese. That is what is fundamental here, Mr. Minister. A lot of people, they get on Facebook, a lot of people they get in the party groups, and a lot of people they get, well, in the ring is countering it. They're delivering this thing about how we are the highest, fastest growing, and all of that. But when you talk to those people, Mr. Minister, I want to tell you I have been talking to them. They're punishing. You go to the market, Skeldon Market, Port Morant Market, New Amsterdam Market, Parika Market. The people are suffering intensely. And it is, I am the one that buys most of the greens almost every time. And they only recently talked to Mr. Zulfikar about that. that they're struggling. They said it as much. And so the delivering the well-being of the Guyanese is fundamental. Pumpkin, Bora, everything that is planted here, which the Minister of Agriculture proudly talks about. Every price going up and up and up. And so you could talk about all these things when your time comes. But what about delivering the well-being to Guyanese? And it does not require much, Mr. Speaker. It does not require much. Guyanese, even at the very lower down level, wants to see the mosquitoes that biting them every night to bring a halt to it. You can do something about that. You can also see the dirty streets in Georgetown now. When David Patterson was infrastructure minister and Annette Ferguson, it was clean. What you see is a lot of garbage all over the place now. Mr. Speaker, these little things matter. You don't have to necessarily go spend big time money behind infrastructure and all of that. The well-being of Guyanese as against infrastructural work needs to be attended to. Make quality of life better with the resources it has. Mr. Speaker, the quality of life of Guyanese now, notwithstanding this big set of monies that we got, $3.8 trillion. What we got to do, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that we improve our education. We bad in maths. 50% can't matriculate. We got to do lots better in health. You got nurses shortage. You got medicine shortage. You got to do also better. And these are things that could be simply done with the money that you got. Yeah, that is why the Port Morant domestic violence and so on in Berbice is so high, because you ain't got no shortage of that. Rum. The alcoholic swings, you call it the binge drinking in Guyana is the highest in the Caribbean. We did a survey on drinking in Guyana, and it is important to understand that binge drinking is the highest in the Caribbean. And even marijuana and cocaine in school is very, very high at that level. But now that you got the money, make sure that you use it in these policies. Even the functioning of our courts. We noticed that Attorney General indicated that we're going to have what is called the appointment of Chief Justice and Chancellor soon. A lot of pressure came from a number of international and regional people that CCJ president and so on have been making these things. And it is important too that not only those two big appointments, but I read in a newspaper in Sabrick News about 5 days ago that we have to make certain judges who were appointed in 2018 substantive. And it is fundamental. I hope that it is not because of their independent thinking that they are not getting appointed as substantive judges. Well, I hope that that is so. All of them have been substantively appointed. All right, well, there are a lot of times when the Honorable Attorney General, I hope that you now go on for the Chief Justice and the Chancellor. I hope you go on now to the Chief Justice and Chancellor.
Go on to the Chief Justice and the Chancellor.
My problem is that why, after all this kind of thing, you would have it. Mr. Speaker, building quality infrastructure rather than the collapsibles and the substandard, causing the president to go out 5 o'clock in the morning and cussing up all the contractors.
Okay, you just stepped over again. You're now accusing the president. So please, withdraw that for me, and then I'll ask someone to give you 5 minutes extension to conclude.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to continue his presentation.
Honourable member, you have 5 minutes to continue and conclude the presentation, but you had to withdraw that reference to. Thank you.
Criticizing at an unholy hour at 5 o'clock, and even directing some of those criticisms to my good friend, Ms. Priya Manik Chan. Look, monies could be spent in some measure of getting life better for our Guyanese. In relation to traffic congestion, I now have to spend about 30 minutes from Delft Street to Hatfield Street, my new office. And yeah, that's another thing. Like, is everybody gets sirens now? Mr. Speaker, just to bring my address, I want to talk about this slush fund mentality. This government has that mentality about it, whereby you can see in certain programs and even line item heads a number of big set of monies being there, and we're not getting accountabilities for it, or at least the Auditor General making mention of them. Take, for example, in the PM office disaster preparedness, we got about $40 billion now, and we understand that that is where they're going to give the cash grant from. But it comes up about $30 billion. I collect mine, that is true, but it's $30 billion it will come up. What happened to that other $10.5 billion? No, well, that is it. We have the Amerindian Development Fund, a number that is $3.4 billion in the 2022 budget, and we see that instead of the Amerindian Development Fund, the money going into, it was then transferred to the Amerindian Purpose Fund. And $3.4 billion we can't account for, and the Auditor General has indicated as much in the 2022 report. I can hand it to you. And that is why also in other very questionable sums in which we get, like I mentioned it already, the slush funds in the $11 billion, the other $5 billion. And so it is fundamental, Mr. Speaker, that these be accounted for. This government has always talked about transparency and accountability, but we don't get it. And even the committees and commissions that we institutionalized are not functioning as a result. Mr. Speaker, I want to end by stating that, on the first day, what I recall was that two ministers saying that we're going to take care of the people from cradle to the grave. I want to say we got to do better. We got to take care of the people from the womb to the tomb. And I don't want to tell you where further we can go, Mr. Speaker. We could even go further, right? From erection to resurrection. I hope that is not unparliamentary. But, Mr. Speaker, I cannot, in my right mind, support this budget as it stands because of its misallocations, its questionable spendings, and the unaccountabilities that go with so much large sums, especially on the other and so on, and the various slush funds. I am going to ask that it is not supported. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And now for the Honorable Member, Minister of Home Affairs, the Honorable Brindley Horatio Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you, honorable members. I rise to support the budget for 2025 for Guyana as presented by the Honorable Ashley Singh and the Cabinet and the President Irfan Ali, a budget intended to continue the dramatic transformation of Guyana in this special moment that Guyana is in. Mr. Speaker, for some of us who are older, the Honourable Member, Mr. Ramjatan, 54 years in Parliament, and myself. Oh, it's 34. For persons of our age, Mr. Ramjatan and us, this moment should be special. It will not happen in our lifetimes again. This transformative moment in the history of our country will not happen again. And I recall, Mr. Speaker, when we said we had found the oil, it was called an elections gimmick. An elections gimmick. And now that this gimmick is on us, now that the monies are flowing into the country, people are upset, people are angry, people are helpless and hopeless about the fact that this gimmick is a real thing. That the people of Guyana could, for the first time in generations and decades, be at a point where they could see the way forward to progress, peace, and prosperity. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member stood up here before me in this honourable house, and he talked about this development mirage. Well, I can't expect him to see any better based on his infirmities otherwise. Development mirage. There are some people, mostly on that side, and some in the social media and in some parts of the press, who walk on the roads, drive on the roads, go into the new schools, see new prisons, new police stations, new fire stations, and all of those things in reality. And will come here and say, it's a mirage. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member taken the high road in terms of speaking on the budget, and I want to compliment the honourable member, Ms. Geeta Chandan Edmond, on her presentation. And perhaps I know she doesn't have a place at Sophia anymore. Perhaps. But, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected more depth, charity even, from whatever number of years. Mr. Speaker, simple things which I think I have to respond to. The honourable member, who was a vice president in the previous government, sat in on all the decisions, was party to it, was an advocate of those decisions, which destroyed sugar on the quarantine in Berbice. 7,000 workers went home, and by extension, 35,000 people did not have sustenance and livelihood. And then they come here and talk about empty houses and the quarantine in Berbice. The Honorable Member Kemraj Ramtatan was in on the decisions, which Vice President in on the decisions, or he did nothing about it when they encouraged the blocking of the river at Berbice and killed the work in the bauxite at Hururu, at Kurubuka, at Kokwani, at Aichuni. The Honorable former Vice President was in on those decisions. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member Kemraj Ramtatan was in on the decisions and the discussions. Or maybe he was completely helpless. He was just somebody sitting there with no influence and power. But when they took out the Because We Care cash grant from the Picnic Mountain hands, he was in on the decisions. And he comes here and carries on and he wants people to be there. I could go on and on. I could go on and on. The Honorable Member Ramjatan and others of his ilk. And when we speak of hypocrisy,
Hypocrisy is an unparliamentary word.
Yes, Honorable Member, you should know better.
Mr. Speaker, I want to withdraw the word hypocrite. Hypocrisy. Because I was trying to characterize the fact that somehow I still think that he knew when those things were happening that it was wrong. But he still went along with them. Still went along with them. And look, appeals a constituency he thinks he has on the quarantine coast and tries to continue to confuse and kerfuffle people with high-flown language and expressions. Mr. Speaker, this honorable member met me downstairs when we had the long recount. And he said he knew nothing about the ballot statements, that he wasn't in on it, that the APNU were those who knew everything about it. And he, as a leader of a party, knew nothing about it. A significant partner a significant coalition partner. He told me downstairs there, I marked the spot. He said he knew nothing about it. And after today, he is sitting here, a vice president. Of course, others have flown the coop. Former vice president. There's no apology from him and others about the attempted theft of our democracy. There's no apology from them. There's no apologies from them for the embarrassment and shame we had in relation to the elections of 2020. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I should not be attempting to reply to all of the things which the Honorable Member Ramjatan spoke of. I want to tell him a personal story. That there was a time when I was going to school that I used to plant bora, bygone, pak choy, and tomatoes. and sell them at Border Green. And I think the time has now come where the honorable member should do the same. If he is concerned about the price of bora and tomato in the market, he should encourage people to go and plant it so the prices can come down gradually. That I could show you a thing or two about the planting and selling of those things. Plant more, grow more. Mr. Speaker, the honorable gentleman has no really interest in encouraging Guyanese people to develop themselves. The honorable member has no real interest in seeing that people live better and safer and have more evolved lives. The honorable member, like others on that side, except from Ms. Chandler Edmond, have no real interest. They want to spoil. They're spoilers. And Mr. Ramjitan, the honorable member, snarls and scowls from that side. And I think he must be mad. Mr. Speaker, I will call some numbers from the GRA in relation to the mirage of development that the honorable member has been talking about. The honorable member, I'd like to point out to the honorable member that in 2014, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member, I want to point out to him, in 2014, there were 6,347 cars registered with the GRA. In 2017, in their time, the numbers dropped by minus 55% to 3,481 cars. In 2023, now, recently, the most recent numbers we have, 15,864 cars are registered in Guyana, an increase of 455% over the 2017 numbers. Mr. Speaker, for all significant types of vehicles, I want to display the mirage. In 2014, there were 12,934 vehicles of significant types. Cars, lorries, excavators, graders, minibuses, pickups, tractors. I could give the details. 12,934. In 2017, there were registered 8,810 of those vehicles, a decline of 60+%. Mr. Speaker, today, the number of vehicles of the similar kinds which I quoted on are 31,266, an increase of 355% over the 2017 numbers. That is the mirage I want to clean your eyes. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this budget, which speaks to making safe Guyana, improving safety and security as a function of protecting our development, protecting our country, is very, very significant, pivotal, and transformative. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to the purpose of the Parliament in relation to us all being here again today. In many ways, we've joined at the hip in the effort of national development. We might even be married in the cause of making Guyana develop. It could be thought of that. We could even be considered as cellmates in relation to figuring out, working out, and trapping ourselves sometimes in relation to pushing the cause of Guyana's development. A development which is long overdue and which is being put in reality at the moment. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out some of the issues that we have in relation to the question of development and security. We have, sir, in terms of a specific issue, amongst the highest murder rates in the region. And this rate is tied to the question of transnational organized crime. There is no more the challenges which we have in relation to choke and robs simply, but the nature of crime has changed, and what we are responding to is issues mostly related to transnational organized crime. Of course, there are the questions of youth crime, there are questions of the poverty which still exists and which we're working hard to overcome, but there are issues which we need to pay attention to when we talk about crime. And with some specificity, we have a murder rate of 22 per 100,000. There are other countries where the murder rate is much higher. Jamaica, El Salvador, Trinidad and Tobago, Turks and Caicos Islands, which have significantly higher murder rates. We are aware, and if we refer to the Regional Symposium of Crime and Violence as a public health issue, which will held from November 21 to 23rd in Guyana, there was the discussion at the level of the CARICOM Secretariat and heads as to how to work together on the question of crime, transnational organized crime. I hasten to say that the type of crime is not related to Guyana specifically in itself, but it comes about as a function of drug trade. It functions and results because of the arms trafficking, which relates to the matter. It has to do with the money laundering, which is related to the matter. It has to do with the trafficking in persons in respect of the matter. And it behooves us to find together the type of consultations, discussions, and responses and attitudes, and in some cases to stop the whispering which goes on in relation to what is happening on the question of crime. We have had over the past year a reduction in serious crime by 12.2%. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member Ramjatan speaks of police stations that we're building. He speaks, I'd like to know how many built in his time. Right now, tell us how many new police stations that you built, or new infrastructure for the police that you built, or new vehicles that you got for the police in respect of improving crime and security. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member Ramjatan speaks of the prison. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell the honorable gentleman I would be happy to accommodate him at one of the new prisons that we have, either at Mazaruni, at Lusiklan, at New Amsterdam, for emphasis, and at Timeri. Because in other circumstances, some of these people on the other side wouldn't be here. They'll be well ensconced in the prison. And Ramjatan cannot say that he was not aware of the work of the malignancy against our Constitution, which resulted in the attempted theft of our democracy in 2020. So let's keep that as an open issue and an open question. The Honorable Member Ramjatan spoke about the prison. When myself and Minister Frank Anthony visited the prison, I asked him to come there. The COVID was on, and we were very worried because there were men sleeping on the tents, open air, open to the weather, sleeping in shifts, sleeping double-deck in hammocks above and mattresses below, and sleeping in shifts. The Honorable Member Ramjatan, I believe, never visited that prison as far as I'm aware.
Never. Never.
The Honorable Member Ramjatan presided over the destruction of the prisons in Georgetown, at Camp Street, and in the prison at Lusiklan. He presided over that and built some things worse than chicken pens for the men to sleep under.
How many persons died? Tell them how many persons died. 17 persons died.
The most jailbreaks, the most fires, the most depredation, the most rapes in the prison occurred under his watch. And he comes here to tell us about the prisons. Shameless, not hypocrisy.
Honorable Minister, your clock is running, and you just used 2 words I don't allow. Please.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the honourable member be granted an extension of 5 minutes.
Sorry, PM. His clock is running, but he didn't run out of time as yet.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable member wants me to respond to every specific that he said here. The honorable member, the honorable member made infamous statements here in the Parliament. I would like to point out to him that yes, we're building new police stations. That yes, we have to build a new police station at Brickdam, a new modern building edifice, because I won't describe how I found some of the police barracks when we took over. But the criminal investigation department building was in the state of collapse, amongst many others. We've had to move them out. We're moving and we're building a new criminal investigation department. We're building a new police station at Brickdam. And I'm sure with the intention of the police service to improve their efficiency, their integrity, and yes, of course, to deal with issues of corruption, which is public knowledge at various levels that on parliamentary, I withdraw. Lack of integrity. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member knows how to look at a mirror. Mr. Speaker, I pointed out that we've had a decrease of 12.2% in relation to serious crimes, that we've had a number of 624 cases, and the clear-up rate is 50.5%, much larger than when we took over, when the rates were at the level of 19 or so percent. Mr. Speaker, the firearms seized by the police force over the years, and particularly over last year, were 178, making a big dent in relation to those who will want to carry on activities using firearms to commit crime. The Honorable Member Ramjatan spoke about domestic violence. We have had reports of 1,535 cases of domestic violence in 2024, and 911 cases were made, and there were 167 convictions, which is a steep increase from previous years. In relation to narcotics seizure by the Guyana Police Force, there has been 1,463 seizures, 581 reports, 379 cases, and 77 convictions. In relation to questions of trafficking in persons, there were 31 reports and 6 cases. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak some of the supposedly mirage police stations and buildings which are being made, are completed in 2024. The Nansel Police Station, Monkey Mountain Police Station, if you want to talk about the footprint and the hinterland. Breedenhoek Police Station, Mocha Police Station, Sparnam Police Station, Letton Police Station, Anai Police Station, Barmita Police Station, Imbamalai Police Station, Rose Hall Police Station, Tushen Police Station, Ettringbank Police Station, Karasabai Police Station, Rhineville Police Station, Providence Police Station, Charity Police Station, Yarkita Police Station, Kamrang Police Station, Kurpung Police Station, Kato Police Station. And the honorable member stands up here and talks about footprint and hinterland and interior locations. Mr. Speaker, there has also been a large expense in respect of vehicles. $262 million invested, including drones, Hilux vehicles, 15, ATVs, double shocks for the interior, Isuzu 5-ton flatbeds, motorcycles, and a long list of equipment delivered to the Guyana Police Force in relation to supporting crime fighting, interdiction in relation to crime, heightening response in their responsiveness in relation to crime, and those activities. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member Yes. Thank you, Mr. Maifal, for giving some insights there. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the Guyana Prison Service, there has been a tremendous increase in the facilities. There has been a significant effort to enhancing security measures at the prison to prevent escapes. We have been working at modernization of the operating procedures. We have worked at improving the training and the psychological readiness both of the prisoners and of the officers. The Honourable Member Ramdatan spoke about the prison. I could advise him that we have built a prison school at Lusiknan. I could advise him that we have established vocational sections for prisoners at Lusiknan. I could advise him that we have for prisoners a fresh start program that, having been trained in the prison according to their vocational interests, that they will be able to leave the prison, be kitted out rather, with equipment and the means to start businesses to support themselves and their families when they leave the prison.
Honorable Member, I can now advise the Prime Minister to move your extension.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the Honourable Member grant an extension of 5 minutes.
Honorable Member, you may continue for
Mr.
5 minutes to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, for the fire service, we have reconstructed a Leonora fire station. We have constructed a new fire headquarters in Georgetown on home stretch. We have constructed a new fire station at Wales. We have done Eccles Fire Station. Mr. Speaker, we have just bought and are distributing to the NDCs to deal with the issues of fire to the NDCs all over the country. We are acquiring more of the hydraulic platforms. We have acquired more water bowsers. We have worked with Angloco to acquire more ambulances, minibuses, and to support the important work, not only of the fire service, but also of its ambulance service, which has done tremendous work. We are getting another fire boat, new water bowsers, and we anticipate that the responsiveness and the capability, along with the fact that we have graduated new firefighters, that the performance will increase substantially, and along with the effort of bringing greater public awareness to the dangers of fires to persons, that we should be able to see a reduction in the numbers of fires in the country. Mr. Speaker, we continue to install hydrants, doing servicing to those, and bringing to schools and to facilities, and by ways of inspections of governments and private businesses, the question of higher awareness in relation to the question of the dangers of fire. Mr. Speaker, I want to point out of particular interest is the fight we have against drug trafficking. The Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit made the significant seizure of over 4,000 kilograms, a significant or the highest signature of cocaine seized in our country over the years. The Guyana Police Force the Guyana Police Force also seized, after discovering particular types of submersible vessels, 3 vessels which were being intended for use for drug trafficking. We point out that we are victims of the overall drug question. We are not the users of drugs. We are not the marketplace for the drugs. We are transit points. And the fact that the drug trafficking activity, criminality, brings tremendous pressures in relation to the security sphere, we will continue to fight. We're putting more money into this effort, and we are working at continuing to bring down the planes and to make the necessary seizures to deal with this nefarious business. Of course, Mr. Speaker, we have the existential threat on the question of our sovereignty from Venezuela. We note the disruption and the other confusions, particularly recently in a place called Catatumbo in Venezuela, Colombia, between the FARC and the ELN, and we pay note, special note, and we do have border surveillance, not only at the level of the army and the police, but also at the level of the community policing groups, which are also being supported and beefed up in relation to the efforts in terms of border surveillance, intelligence gathering, and interdiction in relating to smuggling, trafficking in persons, and other criminal activities. For the police force, for all of our services, we speak now of pushing forward the ideas encapsulated in the mission of the ministry of increasing the peace in Guyana. Increasing peace in Guyana. And increasing peace in Guyana may only come about when we have broad-based parliamentary support on this issue.
That would be a good point to start winding down. Thank you, Honorable Minister. And now for the Honorable Member, Mr. Sherwin Holder.
Substance now, substance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Robeson Ben spoke about Guyana having the highest murder rate due to transnational crime, but he failed to tell this House or the nation what he and his government has been doing about it. Development in the police force is typically measured by a combination of factors, Comrade Speaker, including crime rate, response time, community engagements, officer training, completion rate, complaint statistics, etc. We didn't hear much about any of those factors. To be honest, Minister Ben, Honorable Member, seem to believe that police cars and buildings solve crime. Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't waste more time on such a poor presentation from the Honorable Minister. I want to say thank you for giving me the floor, Mr. Speaker, and to let me thank all the staff from the Ministry of Finance, staff of all the other ministries, including those at the regional and municipal level, for the hard work done to prepare Budget 2025. Mr. Speaker, I'm not thanking you. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding their efforts, the final document as presented by the Minister with responsibility for finance is based on the policy direction of the People's Progressive Party or lack of thereof. As such, I will focus my attention on concerns with respect to the policies and programs that exist and those that are absent, and also offer alternatives, as we are expected to do as the government in waiting. Mr. Speaker, Guyanese as a whole, whether they support PNCR, PPP, AFC, whichever political party, for decades, as far back as 1966, when we gained independence, have always known that our country possessed tremendous potential to transform from its poor status to a position that will ensure that every Guyanese can live a comfortable life. They also knew then, as we know now, and have come to realize that in order for us to reach our full potential and to realize the dream of a united Guyana, in which all of our citizens can benefit from fair and equitable distribution of our national patrimony, our approach to governance has to be one in which all stakeholders are allowed to participate. Mr. Speaker, I say this because since the discovery of oil in 2015, significant investments by the oil companies has transformed our country from its poor state into one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Our GDP has surpassed all our CARICOM and South American neighbors. Notwithstanding this, Mr. Speaker, over the past 5 years, we have heard the tens of thousands of voices of ordinary Guyanese who continue to struggle with the reality of this economy in which their income does not allow them to take care of their most basic needs. Needs like providing 3 square meals a day for their family and paying their rent and utility bills. So, Mr. Speaker, while the likes of Honorable Member Ashley Singh, Wana Jill, and others on the government side will harp gloriously about all the infrastructure, etc., being done, if we do not change our approach towards governance and allow all stakeholders, including the opposition and the other civil society groups and NGOs, to contribute to the process in a significant way, a majority of Guyanese will continue to suffer the way they are. Mr. Speaker, the 2025 budget, because of the oil industry, is larger than all of the APNU AFC's budgets combined from 2015 to 2019. In fact, if we were to total up the yearly budgets prior to oil discovery, you will find, Mr. Speaker, that the last 2 PPP budgets will be equivalent to more than 15 to 20 years of Guyana's total expenditure. As such, Budget 2025 presented another opportunity for the government to demonstrate its willingness to adopt a collaborative approach, ensuring that opposition suggestions, at minimum, are sought and included where necessary in the budget. The PPP's failure to engage the opposition proves their so-called One Guyana mantra to be nothing more than an empty campaign slogan, orchestrated to deceive Guyanese while they conceal their quest for total domination and control of the country through one-party rule. Mr. Speaker, during the 2024 budget debates, I had the painstaking task of highlighting the significant contribution of the I'll touch on natural resources, Comrade Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn to your attention to the Natural Resource Ministry and gold mining in particular, which I mentioned last year, does not escape the PPP's friends, family, and favorites policy, nor the accompanying mismanagement and discrimination. Mr. Speaker, during the 2024 budget, I had the painstaking task of highlighting the significant contributions of the industry to the economy. Mr. Speaker, I explained that the gold industry remained a key contributor to national economic performance and to hinterland settlement and development. In fact, Mr. Speaker, gold accounts for about 6 to 8% of the non-oil GDP and 60 to 70% of non-oil exports. So it is a crucial industry which we ought to pay key attention to and to ensure that it is properly managed. Mr. Speaker, despite record high prices in recent years, the industry continues to have a dismal performance, and the PPP government seems quite content with treating the industry like a stepchild, while parroting the same excuses for the constant decline of the industry year after year. Mr. Speaker, if you read the section of the budget on gold, for the last 5 years, you will see that it not only confirms what I just said, but you will also recognize that for every single year, rather than make realistic projections, they attempt to fool the people into believing that the next year gold will prosper. Mr. Speaker, the PPP has now presented 6 budgets, 5 of which they projected major increases in gold production, none of which were achieved. Mr. Speaker, the production level by the APNU AFC in 2019 was over 641,000 ounces. For 5 straight years under this PPP government, who, by the way, continues to have access to hundreds of billions of dollars from oil resources, hundreds of billions from revenue collection, and hundreds of billions of dollars from access to loans and grants, gold has constantly plummeted by more than 30%, down to 434,067 ounces. Interestingly, Mr. Speaker, the reason for the decline, as stated in the 2020 to 2024 budget, is due to low declaration from small and medium-scale miners. Mr. Speaker, while the government seeks to indicate an increase in production by an insignificant 0.5% or 1,954 ounces, it is the lone large-scale company that accounts for it. Production among small and medium-scale miners, Comrade Speaker, actually fell by more than 33,000 ounces. Mr. Speaker, because of the PPP incompetence and mismanagement of the gold industry over the 5-year period, the people of Guyana lost about $300 billion. Mr. Speaker, they didn't need to increase production from the 2019 level left by the APNU AFC. If they had just maintained it, we would have gained over 700,000 more ounces of gold. Mr. Speaker, the revenue loss is equivalent to the entire 2019 budget. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the gold industry cannot only be seen as a revenue base for the country, but it also aids in occupying and securing much of our territory, for which Venezuela has constantly attempted to claim. It provides much needed employment for the indigenous communities and generally props up the local economies in many rural communities. Mr. Speaker, the fact that gold prices have been consistently high over the last 5 years, but yet has not attracted significant investment, tells a story of neglect and poor management. And I know the Minister of Natural Resource will, in his rebuttal, state that a second company, I believe OKO West, is coming with a projected annual projection of 353,000 ounces. Mr. Speaker, even if you were to add their production to the current production levels, it will struggle to match what existed under APNU AFC 6 years ago. Mr. Speaker, the focus has to be on small and medium-scale mining. I suspect that the PPP's friends, family, and favorites policy is what might be affecting the small and medium-scale mining. In fact, over the last year, I've received several complaints about the Guyana Geology and Mines favoring friends of the government over the small miners. I had a particular case to deal with here today, Comrade Speaker, but I will not deal with it because I was advised by the small miner not to, and I respect his wishes. As the next government, Comrade Speaker, we will conduct the necessary mineral mapping, as I stated last year, the necessary mineral mapping in a timely manner to open up new lands for gold mining and other critical minerals. Those minerals that are important to industry and new technology, but are of limited availability due to geology, economics, geopolitics, or environmental barriers, and are hard to substitute, thereby encouraging large investments in the industry, but at the same time ensuring a level playing field for small and medium-scale miners. We will also promote Guyana as a mineral investment destination, Comrade Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister responsible for Finance, let me just touch on bauxite quickly. The Minister responsible for Finance reported that in 2024, there was a 225% increase in production. to 1,700,000 tons. This sounds like good news, Comrade Speaker, for the industry, since, as we are aware, the bauxite industry has for decades presented many challenges, some seeming insurmountable. But, Mr. Speaker, if you look closer at the statistics, the increase is simply due to one of the existing companies expanding their operation with a new kiln. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the AP and UAFC, through our 5 years in office, from 2015 to 2019, saw an average yearly export of over 1,660,000 tons, with a peak production, Mr. Speaker, of 1,924,466 tons in 1,920,336 tons in 2018 and 2019, respectively. Mr. Speaker, this exceeds the 5-year average production under the PPP from 2020 to 2024. Their average is 828,000 tons over a 5-year period, a significant decline by more than 50%. Mr. Speaker, I am certain that both the Finance Minister and Minister of Natural Resource will seek to defend their dismal performance by blaming the AP and UAFC for the bauxite company Rusal's departure. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, companies have their own internal challenges, as did Rusal for many years prior to the APNU AFC government. Mr. Speaker, I will remind the government that when APNU AFC came to power in 2015, we were faced with similar situations. For example, the Venezuela-Guyana paddy for fuel deal had collapsed. Certain markets for rice which the PPP enjoyed were gone. Farmers took to the streets in protest because of the low paddy price. We didn't complain and blame the PPP for 5 years, Comrade Speaker, but we rose to the occasion as any competent government would, found new markets and rescued the rice industry. So much so, hold on, it gets better, so much so, Comrade Speaker, that the two highest production levels ever recorded in the history of this country, according to 2016 and 2019, under the APNU AFC. Mr. Speaker, they can't come crying and blaming the APNU AFC. They must man up, I say. Be truthful and admit your incompetence. Mr. Speaker, Guyana's bauxite deposits can produce probably the world's widest range of bauxite products, such as metallurgic grade, refractory grade, cement grade, chemical grade bauxite. The PPP in the last 5 years, with resources available, has failed to better leverage this global comparative advantage. As the next government, Comrade Speaker, we will work to advance the industry, utilizing the various qualities of our deposit and to convert the raw bauxite into value-added products. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to touch on oil and gas, natural resource, and low-carbon development strategy. The minister claimed in his budget speech that he intends to strike an, I quote, appropriate balance between short-term imperatives and long-term considerations. How are they doing this while spending 95% of the NRF funds, Comrade Speaker? This approach suggests that all matters are short-term imperatives. At the current rate of depletion, it will be years, Comrade Speaker, before significant funds will be available to invest so that we have funds to stabilize the economy and to ensure prosperity for future generations. By its own admission, Comrade Speaker, global oil supply will surpass demand in 2025, leading to a 10.95 drop in oil price to just around $71 per barrel. This drop has consequences for the GDP growth rate. 2025 growth is expected to slow to 10.6%, down from 43.6% in 2024. This significant drop is a prima facie evidence that Guyana is already oil-dependent, Comrade Speaker. This increases the risk inherent in spending essentially all of our oil revenues. Point number 2, Comrade Speaker. The second point I want to highlight is that the PPP government is both lawless and disrespectful to the Guyanese people. On page 24 of the budget speech, Comrade Speaker, the minister accounted for every dollar spent from the monies received from Norway through the low-carbon development strategy, but refuses in the same breath to account for the spending of hundreds of billions of dollars of our oil money. Mr. Speaker, the minister gave specific details on the LCDS spending, They accounted to the Norwegians, Comrade Speaker, for their LCDS money. But when it comes to our oil money, the PPP continues to violate their own law, which they brought to this very House, Comrade Speaker, and approved by themselves in December of 2021. Mr. Speaker, clause 16.2 says, and I'll read it, all withdrawal from the fund shall be deposited into the consolidated funds and shall be used only to finance 1, national development priorities, and 2, essential projects that are directly related to ameliorating the effects of a major natural disaster. Mr. Speaker, there is a clause in this act which directs the Minister of Finance, that a Minister of Finance could face up to 10 years imprisonment if he fails to disclose the monies received from oil. Mr. Speaker, I suggest to this House today that we extend this penalty to any finance minister who fails to disclose how our oil money is spent and prohibit the National Assembly from further approving any oil money until that which was spent is properly accounted for. The lawlessness and disrespect shown by the People's Progressive Party to the people of Guyana must end now, Comrade Speaker. Point number 3, arbitration and audits. Mr. Speaker, we often speak about growing our natural resource revenues and production, but too little time is spent on the question of safeguarding those revenues and the future of these industries. The PPP has proven not to be the guardians of our patrimony, but a sleeping watchman, Comrade Speaker. So deep is their sleep, Mr. Speaker, that Guyanese have heard virtually nothing about the various arbitration cases plaguing the nation. What are we doing to ensure the Guyanese people receive their fair due and to prevent sizable losses, Comrade Speaker? The PPP's hands are so slippery from oil money. Their eyes are so blinded by black gold that they care little if hundreds of millions of US dollars slide through the government's fingers. Mr. Speaker, Guyana's forced oil audit erupted into controversy after the PPP claimed that a government functionary nearly signed away $214 million US in recoverable monies that the audit flagged as questionable costs. We have heard very little about these monies, even though we argued in last year's budget that funds should be set aside to fight this case. Mr. Speaker, can the government tell us where these monies are? These monies could easily finance the $20 billion in direct cost of living mitigation we have advocated for, more than doubling the government's paltry 2025 $9 billion sum. Mr. Speaker, irresponsible governance has real consequences, and the runaway cost of living crisis is one of them. The government must urgently update the nation and recover these monies. Mr. Speaker, it is these very loopholes and wastages that the APNU proposed to plug as part of the next government and utilize these very funds to bring much needed cost of living relief to the poor and working class people of this country. On the other hand, Comrade Speaker, our natural gas is being similarly mismanaged. The gas-to-energy plant teeters on the brink of disaster, with multiple delays piling up, and the government going as far as removing VAT on generators, a warning sign, Comrade Speaker, if we ever saw one, that the project may be far from completion. If this were not concerning enough, there are not one but 2 arbitration claims by the contractor against the government. The first is $50 million US, and the second is likely to be just as hefty a sum. Who knows what the final total will be after all these lawsuits, and whether there are even more on the way, Comrade Speaker. Here again, the government has been silent, only acknowledging the first suit after an international newspaper broke the story. Further, Comrade Speaker, the government selected a forum to explore opportunities to monetize our natural gas and build out infrastructure. But international media coverage has raised serious questions about the contractor's capabilities. Mr. Speaker, Comrade Speaker, what steward of our resources would name a company with no history of successful projects to oversee $100 billion worth of natural gas reserves, as some experts have estimated? Comrade Speaker, what responsible steward would overlook the long list of qualified companies that applied to fill this role? Mr. Speaker, only the PPP, which is fond of giving infant companies adult responsibilities. Mr. Speaker, now the government seems to be scrambling to address this gap in governance, still uncertain how Guyana can benefit fully from its natural gas wealth. Mr. Speaker, I want to reassure the Guyanese people that not only are we very much aware of the opportunities to benefit from the natural gas production, but as the next government, the APNU intends to deploy resources for the required feasibility studies. After all, unlike the PPP, we are not prepared to play games with US $100 billion. Mr. Speaker, we will focus on providing low cooking gas and free fertilizer, as well as work towards clay brick manufacturing, metal smelting and fabrication, transportation, fuel development, gas production, and ceramic manufacturing, among other industries. Natural gas can power all of these opportunities, and we look forward to generating high-paying jobs, tax revenue, and economic growth across several sectors. There are boundless opportunities available, Comrade Speaker, for a sensible government to evaluate and pursue. Sadly, Comrade Speaker, after 5 years, the PPP has not demonstrated that they have the intellectual capacity or the focus to make prudent use of $100 billion in natural gas. Mr. Speaker, the APNU has outlined a comprehensive set of policies, strategies, and principles that will guide our management of the oil and gas sector as the next government. Here are some of the things we will do as the next government. 1, within 90 days of taking office, our administration will constitute a distinguished advisory team of professionals to advise the government on the upstream, midstream, and downstream planning, development, and administration of Guyana's oil and gas sector. 2, we will review the existing drafts of the Petroleum Commission legislation and restructure as necessary to finalize the establishment of an independent, autonomous petroleum commission equipped with the highest caliber of fit-for-purpose professionals to manage the oil and gas sector from application for license through auction, exploration, production, sales, refining, and gas utilization for energy. Mr. Speaker, the PPP has betrayed the trust of the Guyanese people on this very matter. In opposition, and even in the first few months after 2020, both Minister of Natural Resource Vikram Bharat and the Vice President is not here today to hear this. But after he's never here, but after becoming
You want to withdraw that because I keep a register here of the attendance of
Thank you, Comrade Speaker. He's not here today, and sometimes he's absent very often. But he's here at times, very often absent. No respect. Promised to set up the Petroleum Commission. They promised to set up the Petroleum Commission, Comrade Speaker, but after becoming comfortable and with their hands on the oil money, they turned their backs on the Guyanese people. Mr. Speaker, point number 3, to eradicate corruption, well, I can't say corruption, but to eradicate the run-ins we can say, and unethical conduct by any government or any contractor official. We will institute an independent Inspector General office with a 24/7 anonymous hotline to involve the public in reporting any knowledge or appearance of the run-ins. Point number 4, we will immediately reinstate the coalition government's requirements for full liability coverage. This includes the appropriate insurance as well as a parent company guarantee to cover the full cost of an oil spill. Point number 5, Comrade Speaker. This is the last point I will make. We have about 20 points on the oil and gas, but this is the last one I will make here today. We will undertake a complete review of the Stabroek Block PSA. Again, Comrade Speaker, the PPP betrayed the people, campaigned on renegotiating the oil contract, but when they took office, they deserted the Guyanese people. Transformational infrastructure. I want to speak on that a little, Comrade Speaker. Energy expansion and diversification. Mr. Speaker, in paragraphs 4.82 and 4.83 of the budget speech, as presented by the Minister of Finance, the Minister, and by extension the PPP government, admitted to the challenges faced by our energy sector, stating clearly that they are long-standing and well-known. They went on to blame the opposition for dismantling the Amelia Falls Hydro project. But, Mr. Speaker, the problems surrounding our energy crisis does not lie only in power generation or lack of capacity to satisfy the demand, but major issues also exist in the transmission and delivery of power and the overall management of the sector, neither of which would have been addressed through the Amelia Falls Hydro project. Mr. Speaker, the APNU AFC on various occasions sought to educate and warn the PPP about these issues. We warned them about the power ships, the same way we warned them about the Amelia Falls project. But after $16 billion of investment, thousands of households and run-ins, thousands of households and businesses continue to suffer from significant levels of blackout. Mr. Speaker, to mask their incompetence and mismanagement of the sector, they resort to blaming the APNU AFC for 5 straight years. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, the APNU AFC kept people's lights on, Comrade Speaker. We kept them on. And we reduced blackouts significantly. When PPP came to power, Comrade Speaker, once again in 2020, the dark days and nights returned with them. Mr. Speaker, the stark reality of the 2025 budget is that it does not guarantee energy security for all of Guyana, but rather places a majority of its focus on a single project, the gas to energy project, as the sole solution to our energy crisis, and the removal of VAT on backup electricity generators. Mr. Speaker, clearly the minister has no faith in the ability of his own government to fix the power crisis. Mr. Speaker, as the next government in waiting, I would like the Guyanese people to know that we understand the discomfort and disruption to their lives and the losses they suffer due to blackouts. In the APNU AFC, we have thoroughly analyzed the situation and understand fully that supply of energy to households and businesses is short on accessibility, affordability, availability, and dependability, which are key performance requirements. So here is how we will fix the sector as the next government, Mr. Speaker. We will implement an energy security strategy to ensure that all households and businesses receive reliable and affordable power, and our power supply and infrastructure are not vulnerable to natural and other threats. In particular, Mr. Speaker, we will focus on 6 key areas. 1, more effective management of the development of our natural gas resources. 2, we will upgrade the heavy fuel generation system to backup and energy emergency purposes. 3, invest massively in solar, hydropower, and other renewable energy sources, with specific emphasis on remote communities in regions 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10. This is to ensure both short-term and long-term energy security as our gas supply dwindles. 4, we will maintain high levels of redundancy and diversity in energy source and generation capacity.
5, you need an extension of 5 minutes.
Comrade Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to continue his presentation.
Honourable member, you have 5 minutes to continue and conclude.
Thank you, Comrade Speaker. 5, we will more rapidly overhaul the entire transmission and distribution system. And 6, explore the possibility of making our electricity system modular to reduce the geographic scale of blackouts. Mr. Speaker, with proper management of the sector and the implementation of these and other measures, we guarantee real transformational change in the energy sector, and that will redound to major improvements in the lives and livelihoods of all Guyanese. The transportation sector, Comrade Speaker, transportation infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, while the PPP with oil money in hand boasts about new infrastructural development to come on stream shortly, many questions remain unanswered. For example, Mr. Speaker, a second bridge over the Borbis River. What informed the government's decision on this? How can VP Jagdeo tell this nation that that a feasibility study is not necessary. What informed the government's decision to repair the Linden-Suzdijk highway rather than expand it into a major 4-lane highway, since it is a section of the main artery connecting Brazil to Georgetown? Mr. Speaker, I will leave for the critique of this poorly developed PPP infrastructure plan to my other colleagues. Let me share with you and all of Guyana what to expect from an APNU-led government after the next election. Infrastructure development will be geared towards improving productivity, livability, and sustainability. Mr. Speaker, to achieve these objectives, our transformational infrastructure plan focuses on two distinct areas. One, an inter-town connection road network or intercity highways. This aspect will see the construction of paved roads linking Linden and New Amsterdam, Linden and Lethem, Linden and Madia, and Madia and Bartikel as notable examples. Mr. Speaker, there is presently no road link between New Amsterdam and Linden, although these two major towns are roughly 55 miles apart and serve vast catchment areas. We will build a New Amsterdam-Linden highway. Number two, a coastal hinterland road network. With regards to the coastal hinterland network, we will focus on replanning, upgrading, or creating routes that connect, for example, Bartica to Upper Mazroni and Essequibo Coast to Middle Cayuni and the Northwest District. These projects will improve bridging the Essequibo River, bridging the Essequibo River at several points. Work will be undertaken only after detailed feasibility studies, impact assessments, and public consultations. Unlike our political rivals in the PPP, as the next government, we will spend the people's money responsibly and sensibly. Mr. Speaker, because of time, I will jump to the people-centered approach to governance. Mr. Speaker, as the next government, we will put people first and at the center of our development agenda. We will put oil money in there as we did before, correct. We will put money in the hands of the people, of the Guyanese people, and guarantee a high quality of life. We will make Guyana one of the best countries to live in. Mr. Speaker, in our first budget, an APNU-led government will do the following. Introduce a 35% increase for all public servants, including our teachers, doctors, nurses, discipline forces, and all other government workers. Compare this with the paltry 8% the PPP will be given next year. Two, we will increase the tax-free threshold. Is it 8 or 9? Anyway, it's paltry. This year and next year they got something too. Next year, but you're out, so we won't consider that. We will increase the tax-free threshold to $400,000. It therefore means that the majority of public servants who work for $400,000 less will pay no taxes. Compare that with the PPP paltry $130,000 tax-free threshold. Three, households will benefit from $100,000 every month in cash subsidies and other benefits. This adds up to over $1 million in cash and other benefits yearly. No payment on household electricity bills, $10,000 or less. No payment on household water bills, $5,000 or less. Cost of cooking gas will be reduced by more than 50%. Rent and mortgage assistance will also be introduced. Point four, Comrade Speaker, we will give a good governance cash grant of at least $100,000, maybe once or twice a year, to every adult. Point number five, we will give a child care allowance of $10,000 for every child from birth up to 16 years old, and an additional nutritional voucher of $2,500 for every child up to 5 years old. Point number six, we will not only offer free university education, but also introduce a $50,000 stipend for those poor and low-income students. For the current students, we will reimburse your loan and cash payments immediately. For graduates, we will write off the payments and reimbursements as long as you satisfy certain criteria, for example, like working in the country for 5 years. Point number seven, we will introduce an old age pension, Comrade Speaker, of no less than $80,000. Point number eight, let us be very clear, Comrade Speaker, the APNU government will not stop part-time job scheme, but instead we will train all such workers so that they can get full-time employment benefit at higher full-time rate. We will pay a training stipend of $50,000 per month, which is $10,000 more than what the PPP is currently giving them. Mr. Speaker, too many people and households are poor in Guyana. In addition, many households are economically insecure. The high prices for food, rent, electricity, travel, etc. continue to burden Guyanese families as prices continue to rise due to high inflation rate and PPP mismanagement of our
Honorable member, I gave you an extra minute because I wanted to hear what you were going to give a pensioner like me. Unfortunately, I'll have to now cut you off at this time. Thank you very much. And now for the honorable member, Minister of Natural Resources, the Honorable Vikram Bharat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it was the very tone and promises made by the APNU AFC in their 2015 campaign. And what did the people of Guyana got? What did the people of Guyana enjoy? Nothing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, in this House and in this country, it is no crime to pluck figures out of thin air, to make fake promises, and to seemingly make recommendations that are being implemented by the government of the day. And for some reason or the other, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Shawrin Holder and the Honorable Ramsarup seems to be locked away in a cocoon. When I listen to their recommendations, these are the very projects that are being implemented by the People's Progressive Party civic government. So I'm wondering if they're really following what is happening in this country or not. But like I said, Mr. Speaker, it is easy to make fake promises, like they did in 2015. And then from 2015 to 2020, we went backwards instead of moving forward. Again, in 2025, they will come with those fake promises. They will come with those fake promises of 400,000 threshold, of 80,000 pension. But these are the people who took away the cash grant from the students. These are the people who added VAT and light and water in this country. These are the people who added VAT on education and health services in this country. But yet you come to the National Assembly with all these lofty promises and recommendations that we will manage this sector and that we will ensure that the oil money reaches down to the people. Well, Mr. Speaker, we are doing that. The People's Progressive Party Civic is doing that. And we will continue to do that in President Ali's second term in office after the 2025 election. Mr. Speaker, in these debates, it is fair for both sides to compare track records, to compare and to contrast track records. Like the Honorable Member did, he spoke very glowingly of the achievements under the APNU AFC government, but he stopped short. He stopped short in many fronts. Bauxite, for example, the production in 2024, 1.7 million tons. And then he said, oh, the production in 2019 to 2018 was very high. It could have been higher. It could have been higher if they didn't mismanage the situation with Rusal. If they didn't mismanage the situation with Rusal in the Borbis River, which cost almost 1,000 Guyanese, mostly in Kokwani, Aichuni, the Borbis River, and New Amsterdam, their jobs, and the livelihood of their families. That is what he stopped short to say. Mr. Speaker, he spoke a lot on gold, but what he didn't say, he said 5 years, but what he didn't say is that the highest production for gold was in 2016. But if you truly understand how the sector works, the work was done before 2016. The work was done by the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration, so that production could have been high in 2016, in 2017, and in 2018. It was the work of the People's Progressive Party in ensuring that the Aurora gold mine was established and started to produce. It was the work of the People's Progressive Party civic government to ensure that Troy Resources invested and they started to produce. And that is what he's boasting of. That is what he's boasting of, Mr. Speaker. It was the work of the People's Progressive Party civic administration. Mr. Speaker, so I too today would like to compare and contrast based on our track records, based on the experiences, so that the Guyanese people can be the judge for themselves. So that the people looking at these debates would be able to analyze and will be able to ascertain for themselves whether the People's Progressive Party civic is good for this country or whether we are going back to the fake promises from the AP and UAFC. Fake promises from a group of people who all want to be president or presidential candidates. Whose relationship is on life support. How would you vote for a political coalition that is on life support, Mr. Speaker? Life support. Life support. Life support. And before that switch is turned off, the People's Progressive Party civic will be back in government for another term in office. So you can continue to be on life support because the people will be the judge.
Out with the life support people.
Mr. Speaker, let's compare and let's contrast. And let me say to the Guyanese people who deserve to know how the revenue garnered from the natural resources sector is being spent and managed in this country. Because they have a right to know. Mr. Speaker, I won't go too far back because when we speak about the 70s and the 80s and the early 90s, we often hear, oh, I wasn't born then. I didn't know about that. And Mr. Speaker, just like how the opposition are creating AI speeches, they can use the internet to go on Google and see what happened in the 60s and the 70s and in the 80s and the hardship imposed on Guyanese by the PNC. Where is AFC, where is APNU, where is whatever name, it is the PNC. It is the PNC. And the leader of the PNC is indeed a very hardcore, diehard PNC leader. Those who are trying to be presidential candidates from other parties, they came out of that very PNC. And they are trying to do the same too. So, Mr. Speaker, I won't go too far back. I will just go to 2015. I will go to 2015 since the young electorates were born then. I will not go back to the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. Even though we fail to realize that the PNC, regardless of what they call themselves, they have governed this country for 32 years in office plus 1 year squatting. Plus 1 year squatting, which takes you to 33. The PPP, Mr. Speaker, is 23 plus 4. 23 plus 4. We haven't done as yet. 23 plus 4. It is 32 plus 1 year of squatting after the no confidence motion and trying to rig the elections in 2020. So, Mr. Speaker, I won't go too far back. I will go to 2015. And I won't even go to the old manifesto because all the stars and the moon will disappear from the sky because that is what they promise. So I will go to the 100-day plan. I will go to the 100-day plan of the AP and UAFC, just like how the Honorable Mr. Holder read from his properly prepared AI, I don't know if it's AI speech, or his properly prepared AI speech, fanciful recommendations and fake promises. That is what they will come to the electorates with. 400,000 threshold, $1 million cash grant from the Honorable Cox. Good luck, my brother. Apparently you have no idea as to the revenue earnings of our country because it would simply make our country bankrupt. And we'll be unable to do anything regardless of what is infrastructure, what is healthcare, what is education that you're in, or any other service. We'll be a bankrupt country once we follow your policy, Honorable Cox, and the policy of the AP and UAFC. 100-day plan, Mr. Speaker. This is 2015. 9 years ago only. Only 9 years ago. By this opposition that comes to the parliament with the fanciful promises and recommendation. Number one, and there are so many. I may need some assistance here, Mr. Speaker. There are so many, but yet none was achieved. Mr. Speaker, the first one, reduction in the Barbies Bridge toll. Reduction in the Barbies Bridge toll, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what they should say is who built the Barbies River Bridge. It under the People's Progressive Party civic government. And Mr. Speaker, I said this before in one of my budget presentations while we were in the opposition, that yes, the Barbies Bridge toll was reduced from $2,200 to $1,900 because I'm a Barbician, I know. From $2,200 to $1,900 under the AP and UFC. But what did they do? Most of the vehicles leaving Region 6, they are going to the Cherry Jagan International Airport. So while they were reducing there by $300, the parking fees at the airport increased from $200 to $500. From $200 to $500 almost simultaneously. That is what you did. That is what you did. And you know most of the Barbicians, they go to the airport. And you took it back from them. You took it back from them. Mr. Speaker, significantly increased salaries for government workers and all the categories. But Mr. Speaker, whose salary increased by 50%? Thirdly, immediately implement a phased reduction of VAT and the removal of VAT from food and other essential items. What did you do? VAT on light, VAT on water, VAT on education, VAT on health services, VAT on data. Man, you almost VAT dead people too. And we move on, Mr. Speaker. We move on, Mr. Speaker. Waiving of duties on fuel, tools, small-scale mining equipment. Waiving of taxes on small-scale mining equipment. What did they do, Mr. Speaker? VAT on machinery for mining, VAT on machinery for agriculture, VAT on machinery for logging. Failed, Mr. Speaker. And I go on, Mr. Speaker. Establishment of a national cane workers and cane farmers conference. Conference, not an association. A conference. Imagine that in a 100-day plan by this serious government. And you want Guyanese people to vote for you and you're promising them a conference. Man, we could do that in a day. We could do that in a half day. You need 100 days and you still couldn't do it. And they still couldn't do it. And they still couldn't do it. Mr. Speaker, I continue. Establishment of a national rice farmers and rice millers conference. Conference again. Mr. Speaker, these conferences, apparently these conferences was to use the taxpayers' money to fatten the AP and UFC. Mr. Speaker, I continue with these recommendations. I will only go through a few. Liberalization of the telecommunications sector. Mr. Speaker, there's another failed promise. It was done by the Honorable Prime Minister, Mark Phillips. The adoption of a long-term sustainable development plan to revitalize the vast potential of our country. What a plan! Where is the plan? If there wasn't a plan, we didn't even see any implementation. Mr. Speaker, and this is what the APNU AFC was so good at. They were so good at organizing conferences. They were so good at doing feasibility studies, a study for this and a study for that and a study for that. They were so good about plans. But they failed on implementation, Mr. Speaker. They failed badly on implementation, and that is where the People's Progressive Party is doing and implementing the plans and the programs to ensure that Guyanese and Guyanese businesses prosper. So, Mr. Speaker, you cannot speak about the mismanagement in one way and then in the other way, oh, we have a lot of revenue now. Oh, you have oil money now. It simply means that we are managing our economy properly. It simply means that the natural resources sector is bringing in revenue into our country. The Honorable Ramjatan spoke at length about the new revenue and the amount of revenue that you have. But he failed to realize it is because of the prudent management of the resources and the economy that we are in a position that we are today. That is what he didn't say. It is not how much you have, it is how well you manage it. And that is what the APNU AFC couldn't do. That is what you couldn't do. It is not how much you have, but it's how well you manage it. And look at the countries around the world. There are many countries with more oil reserves than Guyana. And they're in turmoil. People are flooding the countries because of starvation and turmoil. And they're coming to our countries because it is being managed properly. Because our resources are being managed properly and the revenue is being used to ensure that Guyanese have a better life. That is why the Honorable Member Ramjatan could complain about traffic. There was no traffic under the APNU AFC because you can afford to buy a motor vehicle. What is the problem with the Honorable Member with having young people owning a motor vehicle? What is wrong with that? And you heard the figures from the Honorable Robson Ben, the amount of vehicles that are being registered in this country. And that is not by mistake. It is by design. It is by prudent management of the economy. It is ensuring that our people benefit from the resources of our country. It is ensuring that our people have more disposable income so that they can afford these amenities and needs and wants. That is what we are doing, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, while I spoke of the APNU AFC 100-day promises, it is only fair too that I look at the accomplishment of the People's Progressive Party Civic in government, so that the people of this country can be the judge. Mr. Speaker, we can talk about the 28 years too. We can talk about the 28 years post-independence. We can talk about the rigged elections. We can talk about the underdevelopment in the hinterland communities. We can talk about when Amerindian citizens were second-class citizens in this country under the PNC government. We can talk about it. We can talk about the rundown infrastructure. We can talk about the high debts. We can talk about the fleeing of people from our country because they lost hope in the PNC and their country because of the dictatorship that existed. So we can talk about that. But I choose to speak about 2015 in all fairness. Honorable Member Vincent. So let us talk about our achievement and where our revenue is being channeled. It is being channeled and directed to ensure that people benefit, that our people benefit. And that is why we can complain here about traffic. Let the people then buy the vehicle. We will deal with that. We are building new highways. We are building new roads. Everyone deserves a better life. So what are our achievements, Mr. Speaker? 50,000 jobs. Promise fulfilled. Promise fulfilled. Promise fulfilled. And yet, the Honorable Member Ramjatan will come to this National Assembly, 34 years of experience, and he was so proud of it. And it's a good achievement. It's a good achievement. But why would you come here and say that 15,000 Guyanese who are earning from the Pathway Workers Program is a slush fund. Why would you be so inconsiderate as a leader in this country to say that 15 ordinary Guyanese, mostly women who are benefit from the Pathway Program, is a slush fund? It is an insult to those women. It is an insult to those 15,000 Guyanese that you can come here and say it is a slush fund. Unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. Unacceptable coming from a man who just boasted of 34 years in Parliament. It is reckless. Mr. Speaker, 50,000 house lots, promise delivered. Promise delivered. Mr. Speaker, 20,000 scholarships, promise delivered. Mr. Speaker, double the old age pension in our first term in office, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, reinstate the Because We Care cash grant and increase it to $50,000, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, removing VAT on electricity and water that the APNU AFC government instituted against our ordinary Guyanese people. The removal of VAT, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, new hospitals, new schools, new roadways, new highways, promise fulfilled. But yet we hear leaders, wannabe presidents, saying that we cannot eat roads. That is a reckless statement. That is a reckless statement. That is very inconsiderate as a man who wants to be the president in 2025. Can you tell the people in Borbees or in Linden or in Essequibo that their road is not important, that we should not build a road, that we should follow Honorable Cox and give them the $1 million gas grant, and they're going to walk in the mud dam that they used to do all the years? Mr. Speaker, the people of this country is benefiting from our infrastructure program, and we will continue to build out our infrastructure program. Mr. Speaker, 2025 budget as presented by our Honorable Minister, Dr. Ashni Singh, and his hard-working staff at the Ministry of Finance, with guidance from the President, Vice President, and the Prime Minister, is a budget that balances infrastructure development with pro-people measures. With pro-people measures, Mr. Speaker, because we need to continue building out our infrastructure because none existed. None existed. Imagine we are doing so many roads in Linden, and you were in power from 2015 to 2020. Linden is known to be your strong support base. How many roads did you build in Linden? How many roads did you build in Amsterdam? And then the honorable member Ramjitan said this morning that during 2015 to 2020, the streets of Georgetown were so clean and beautiful, and there were no mosquitoes. A Barbician saying that. And that now the streets of Georgetown are filthy, and there are so many mosquitoes. But the honorable member failed to realize that the APNU AFC is controlling the city council. We don't run the city council. Give us so we can run it. You are controlling the city council. So it is a direct sabotage. It is a sabotage by the PNC of the city council. Because why is it that the roads going to be cleaned in 2015, 2020, but you can't clean it now? And I want the citizens of Georgetown to know that it is a sabotage by the city council. You're playing politics with the lives of people. You are playing politics with the citizens of this country. It will not be tolerated by the people. And we will see that in the 2025 general elections. Mr. Speaker, permit me to continue with our great sheet here. Free university education, promise fulfilled. Toll-free bridges, promise fulfilled. And if you're Barbicians, some of you are Barbicians, you will know that one of the best things that ever happened to Barbicians, like my friend Honorable Jai Prashad, he will tell you if he's honest enough, that the best thing ever happened to Borbies was the Borbies Bridge. Because if you experience like I did, the hardship of crossing the Torani and Makuria, you would know that it was a blessing, like my friend Adasha St. Louis too. You would understand, like my classmate Gita, you would understand the hardship. You would understand the hardship. And it is a further blessing, Mr. Speaker, that this year the Borbies River Bridge will be toll-free. Will be toll-free. This, Mr. Speaker, will boost economic activities in Region 6. The honorable member spoke about migration in Region 6, but why don't he give us the figures where they're migrating to? They're coming right here too. They're going to Region 6, they're going to Region 10, Region 10, Region 2. They're going to work in hinterland communities. His policy or his thinking of migration is America. Once you left Borbies, you got America. That is not the only form of migration. Many of them are in Georgetown. Many of them are in Georgetown. They're coming back. Many of them are in Georgetown, and many of them are returning too. That is what you need to do. That is what you need to do a survey on as well. How many of them are returning, and how many more will come? Mr. Speaker, so having a toll-free Borbies Bridge will bring significant benefits to the people in Region 6 and Guyana at large. Mr. Speaker, who would have think that we would have seen that magnificent structure across the Demerara River going up? Who would have thought that we would have seen that in our lifetime? We are seeing a brand new high-rise 4-lane Demerara Harbour Bridge, soon to be completed, promise fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, and I continue, new stadium and sports facilities, promise fulfilled. Reopening of sugar estates to create employment for our people, promise fulfilled. Promise fulfilled. It is not about right sizing, as you say it, or whatever. It is about the lives of people, and that is what is important. You will come here and you will criticize the money that we are using to recapitalize the sugar industry, but it is more than that. It is about people. It is about their children. It is about their livelihood. That is what we are talking about. Mr. Speaker, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it hurts to listen to the achievements, especially if you're in the opposing side.
Well, you hurting me right now.
Mr. Speaker, the revival of the Guyana Forestry Commission and the forestry sector will tell you that the state of the Forestry Commission, they were basically bankrupt in 2020. The staff weren't paid, the NIS dues were not paid, the insurance was not paid, the light bill was not paid, the phone bill was not paid. And you would know that, Honorable, you were a board member at that time. You were a board member at that time. Today we have transformed the forestry sector. That it is recognized that Guyana is recognized as having one of the best forest management systems in the world, with one of the lowest deforestation in the world. And the honorable member spoke glowingly about the low carbon development strategy. Well, you need to read that document properly. You need to read that document properly, and you will realize that we are well ahead. We are well ahead of many countries, Mr. Speaker. And what is important to note, Mr. Speaker, is Guyana has become a model country in this world. A model country in terms of economic development versus environmental sustainability. Guyana is recognized for that worldwide, Mr. Speaker. And as all Guyanese, regardless where we sit, we must be proud of that achievement. We must be proud of that achievement. Regardless of political affiliation, it is about patriotism. It is about patriotism. We have one of the best model among developing countries with regards to balancing economic development with environmental sustainability. And even though the forestry sector employs over 25,000 Guyanese, and we're actively involved in harvesting and production, we still have one of the lowest deforestation rates in the world. We have one of the most pristine forests in the world, which is an asset to us. Guyana is the only country that has signed on to the EU Forest Partnership Agreement to the voluntary partnership agreement with the EU so that we can be the second country in the world that will be FLET certified. We are one of the few countries in the world that our forest is PEFC certified. That is to show sustainability and legality and traceability for our wood and wood products. That is what we have returned the forestry state, the forestry commission to under the People's Progressive Party Civic Administration in just 4 years. In just 4 years. So we might come and say that yes, in 2020 or 2021, production was low, but we failed to realize that we were going through a major global pandemic when we took over government. But why didn't we move on and say in 2022 it increased, in 2023 it increased, in 2024 production increased in the forestry sector? We might come and say the export revenue has declined. But Mr. Speaker, we have a massive developmental agenda in this country, both public and private, and we need to satisfy the local demand first and foremost. First and foremost before we seek external markets, and that is what the Forestry Commission has been doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and as I continue, revival of the bauxite sector.
For you to continue, you'll need an extension, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the honourable member be granted an extension of 5 minutes to complete his presentation.
Thank you, PM. Honorable Minister, you have 5 minutes to continue and conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, PM. Mr. Speaker, and I continue our report card so that the people of this country can know what are the achievements. Reduction in electricity rates through the gas energy project. Promise fulfilled, Mr. Speaker. The opposition will come here. This is a 2025 budget. It will be fulfilled in 2025. We are debating a 2025 budget. We are debating a 2025 budget, Mr. Speaker, and these achievements will be fulfilled in the year 2025. So it is easy to come and criticize a project that will transform the lives and people of this country. It is easy to come here and ask the studies and studies. Go, we can take you and you can see the implementation of the project. We can show you the pipeline coming in. We can show you the turbines that are already in country while you are still looking for a feasibility study. Mr. Speaker, and I can continue, but I know my time is running short. So I'll just stop at the last one.
You still have 4.5 minutes.
I will stop at the last one. And I'm sure my friend Maipa would laugh. Another achievement under the People's Progressive Party civic government, the CPL trophy. And we won it. And we won it. See, you get excited about that. Mr. Speaker, we would have listened to many speakers. We would have listened to many speakers before us spoke glowingly of their recommendations, of their fake promises. But sometimes when we come to the House, we need to be honest. We need to be honest. And when the Honorable Robson Man was speaking, he said that many of the members sitting in the opposition, I think you're about 5 or 6 now, who were in the last cabinet, that you sat there when the government made decisions to remove the cash grant for children, to add VAT on electricity, and importantly, you sat there when the PSA, the production sharing agreement for the Stabroek block, was being discussed and agreed on. You sat there and you agreed to it. You sat there and you agreed to it. You agreed that the oil company will not pay any tax. You agreed to that. But yet we have politicians in the opposition who are trying to play Tom and Jerry, Mr. Speaker. Cat and mouse game. And I listened to the Honorable Sherwin Ola. I listened to the Honorable Sherwin Ola, even though he was going at such a rapid pace, reading out his AI-generated speech. He never said, and he never committed to the renegotiation of the Stabroek block. And if you didn't listen, you can check on the answer. He said that we will review the PSA of the Stabroek block. He never said that they're going to renegotiate the agreement of the Stabroek block. Because I listened. And again, you're trying to fool the Guyanese people. Again, you're trying to hoodwink the Guyanese people. But people, again, you're trying to mislead the Guyanese people. Mr. Speaker, when we took over in 2020, we sought to build out the framework to manage the oil and gas sector, and to manage the oil and gas sector in such a manner that Guyanese and Guyanese businesses can benefit. And today we are seeing that. We took a bold step as a small oil producing country, as a small developing nation, to pass a local content legislation when many countries would have stopped at a local content policy. We took that brave step. And why did we do it, Mr. Speaker? To ensure that Guyanese and Guyanese businesses can benefit from the sector. So much today that we have over 1,500 small Guyanese businesses registered in local content secretariat. We have almost 7,000 Guyanese directly employed in the oil and gas sector. We are building out the training center in Port Morant to ensure that young Guyanese can be trained and employed in the oil and gas sector directly. Mr. Speaker, we talk about revenue, but we could remember the 29th of December 2021, when the mace was on the threat, when his house was in ruckus, because we didn't want the Natural Resource Fund, which speaks to proper accountability and transparency in the oil and gas sector, and to ensure that we manage it so that people can benefit. So, Mr. Speaker, I know my time is running short, and I'll have another opportunity next week to go further into the sector. But, Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to thank the Honorable Minister, Dr. Ashni Singh, for year after year producing budgets that balance infrastructural development, economic development with environmental sustainability and pro-poor measures, so that our people can benefit from the revenue in our country. So I want to thank the Minister and his staff, with guidance, as I mentioned, from His Excellency, from the Vice President, from the Prime Minister, and Mr. Speaker, it will be unjust for me if I leave without thanking my very own staff from the Ministry of Natural Resources and its agencies. I wish to commend Budget 2025 for unanimous passage through this House. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, at 1:02, this is a good time to take the suspension for 1 hour for lunch.
We are a peaceful people. Struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble. Just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karas, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here, and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Make no mistake, 'cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one karas, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo. Take time.